Welcome to our opening panel session, Lessons Learned in Moving from Dual to Single Mandate Organizations. I hope you feel energized and look forward to this exciting conversation. To launch the important work we will cover during these 2 weeks of conference, I'm happy to introduce this opening panel of registered nurse leaders from across the country. They each will reflect on their experience in moving from a dual mandate registered nursing organization to an independent association and a separate regulatory body. I am so pleased to be moderating this session today. I am sure the discussion will be engaging and we will all walk away with an appreciation for what we as an organization can expect in the days, weeks, months, and years to come. To start, I would first like to review how this virtual panel will run and how you, as conference attendees, can interact and participate. I will introduce our 3 panelists, and then we'll ask each panelist to share their experience in moving from a dual mandate registered nursing organization to an independent association and a separate regulatory body. I will then ask more pointed questions to each panelist about their experiences. Throughout the panel, I welcome those of you watching this session live to use that chat function to ask questions to our panelists. At the end of my moderated portion, we will then go through participant questions and have our panelists respond. With that, let's begin. On the panel today, first we have Katherine Stansfield, RN. Katherine is the CEO Registrar of the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba. During her nursing career, she has held roles of Vice President and Chief Nursing Executive, Director of Professional Practice, and Clinical Nurse Specialist, as well as other clinical, education, professional practice, and administration roles in several provinces. Next, we have Mary Smith, RN, who is the Executive Director, Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba. She has extensive experience in healthcare administration, leadership, research, education, policy, and clinical practice with hands-on experience leading groups through complex changes and empowering others in the achievement of a shared vision. Finally, joining us from Nova Scotia is Sue Smith, RN. Sue is the CEO and Registrar of the Nova Scotia College of Nursing. She has been a nurse for more than 3 decades and has earned a wealth of experience throughout her career that has enabled her to genuinely understand the complexities of the healthcare system. Her endeavors have led her to greatly appreciate the challenges and the opportunities facing the nursing profession and the significant role health regulators play in public protection. Again, welcome. Katherine, please take a few minutes to tell us your organization's experience in separating the pillars of nursing in your province, and specifically, what you feel is significant to note for Saskatchewan RNs.
Thanks very much, Warren, and I thank you to the SRNA for this invitation and opportunity to share the experiences of the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba. We began our journey in around 2011, 2012. At that time, the College of Registered Nurses of Manitoba, or the profession of registered nurses, was becoming governed under the Regulated Health Professions Act of Manitoba. And it was very clear that in that act that we would no longer be able to serve a dual mandate. In other words, there was no accommodation for any activities that were deemed to be association related. Now, the college had actually ceased doing any association kinds of activities for probably 11 years or so before that. However, there was no real communication to the registered nurses of Manitoba to signal that change. And so it was really a very silent and not communicated change over the course of time. The activity that the college did maintain was to provide a award ceremony every year. And that award ceremony recognized excellence in registered nursing practice. But aside from that, any other association type of activity had ceased. When the college became aware that the official mandate of the college needed to be very clear and needed to be separated, a number of activities began in earnest. First of all, the college's board of directors at that time, now called a council, made the decision that they would support the growth of an association. There were, at that time, a small group of very interested registered nurses who were indicating an interest in beginning an association. So over the course of the next several years, the college granted first a startup grant and then eventually a loan to provide the startup for the association to begin. Over time, it was also then deemed, as the college became closer to being regulated under the RHPA, it was important to be very clear about our fee structure. At that time, our fee structure was actually all included in one fee. And in that fee were the fees that we were providing to the Canadian Nurses Association and the Canadian Nurses Protective Society, together with the registration fees for registration in Manitoba. In our efforts to, again, become a separate entity, we needed to be very clear and transparent about where those fees were actually going. And so that was part of our deliberation in changing our fee structure and in working together with what then became the association to ensure that the transfer of that pass-through would actually belong to the association and not to the college. We did become governed under the RHPA in 2018. And as I said, the college's board of directors had determined that a startup grant or, a startup loan would be provided to the association. We also provided services in kind, which included things like providing them with a space within the college for the first several years, and some services in kind related to back office, such as human resources and finance. Other than that, the association became its own entity and has since moved from the college and established its own location. So in all, our transition work has been very collaborative. We have worked side by side. We understand the very different and separate mandates, and we acknowledge that in every profession, an association serves a particular purpose, which is separate from regulation. And I believe that working together and clarifying that message has really gone a long way to helping registered nurses in Manitoba understand the differences. That difference, though, I have to share with you, is still ongoing, and we continue to work on communication on an ongoing basis. That is probably one of the most important lessons learned, and we continue to do that together to ensure that our messages are separate and clear, but are still complementary. So it's been a journey, and it's certainly been a worthwhile one, and we look forward to the continuing health of the association and certainly to helping the SRNA in any way that we can through our experience.
Thank you, Catherine. Mary, as the Executive Director of the Association of Regulated Nurses of Manitoba, please take a few minutes to tell us your organization's experience in separating and creating a new association, and specifically, what you think is significant to note for us in Saskatchewan as we begin this endeavor.
Thank you, Warren, and thank you to SRNA for the invitation and this opportunity to share our journey and the valuable lessons that we learned during the separation of regulatory and association mandates. What started in 2014 as a grassroots response has really turned into a wonderful, formally incorporated and independent organization that we have today. One that has evolved from originally solely representing registered nurses to now, as of May 2020, representing the professional voice of all regulated nurses, including licensed practical nurses, nurse practitioners, registered psychiatric nurses, registered nurses, graduate nurses, nursing students, and non-practicing nurses in Manitoba. So our membership base and categories are quite broad. But achieving this outcome was certainly a multi-staged process. As Katherine mentioned, a very motivated group of nurses that included our past CNA president, Claire Betker, strongly believed in the need to have a professional association voice in the province, one that advocates for the profession of nursing and healthy public policy. They got together around the proverbial kitchen table every week for a number of months and organized a network called the Manitoba RN Network. This informal network grew to include a steering committee that oversaw the implementation of 3 principal phases. So phase 1 was the exploratory phase, and that started in October of 2014. And that really focused on determining the feasibility of reestablishing a professional association. Because prior to the college being named the college, it was named an association. So they really wanted to determine, are nurses, is it possible, and are nurses going to support it? Then phase 2 went for a year till 2015, focused on identifying and completing the foundational work. So that was called the preparatory phase. And it really was, one of the biggest milestones in that phase was the approval of a business plan and a budget for the first 3 years of operation. And at that time, they did solicit some consultants, some nursing consultants who had previous experience in building business plans and budgets and things like that. And that was very helpful. Then phase 3 was implementation. And that was the exciting phase that really focused on commissioning a fully operational professional association, where the members of the steering committee then became the association's first board. It's important to note that all of this work, particularly in phase 2, would not have been possible without the financial and in-kind support from the college, with that startup grant and the loan that Katherine spoke to. The in-kind support was significant. You know, when you think of providing free office space, desks, computers, all of that where we could basically get to work. And as well, having that in-kind human support from the IT, human resources, finance, what was truly so beneficial. They helped in preparing our budgets, they helped in all of our monthly financial reports, which really supported us as a safety net so that we could grow the skills and the competency to be able to take that over when we eventually were able to move into our own space of August of 2020. So we've been out of the college's support system. We joked about moving out of the parents' basement because it was, we missed it. We missed the support and the collegial working environment that we had, but we truly at all times were very separate organizations. So going on to talk about the lessons learned throughout those phases are really important, I think, are what Saskatchewan registered nurses really want to know for those of you who are interested in getting involved in this wonderful work. The first one I'd like to highlight is ensuring that all of the agreements and the conversations that are critical to the establishment are documented, because, you know, people change. And when we look back at 2014 to say where we are now, 2020, that's 6 years, and people retire and go into other jobs, so that history, that knowledge is missed. So it's really important. And now with the advantages of Zoom, where we can record things and have it in audio, that we can quickly go back to take minutes and things, is really valuable. So another lesson relates to one that you're currently pursuing, and that is consulting with those who have got prior experience and knowledge. And we've really appreciated this opportunity to share our journey, because nobody wants to start from scratch. And having a bit of a roadmap that somebody else has followed, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily the journey you're going to necessarily take or the trip, but it gives you some ideas of what those milestones were, and again, pitfalls maybe along the way, or things like that. So I think having an idea of what's come before is really helping to assist you with that transition. I think it's going to save you a lot of time and frustration. So next is the need to identify our governance model prior to incorporation. And just like any organization, sometimes we don't always know what we don't know, or what are some of the important critical steps that really need to happen sort of before another, because things can happen very organically. And I believe that the initial board felt that they adopted a governance model in some sort, but it wasn't formally accepted. And that's important so that when staff are hired or others are involved, that they can refer back to what that governance model is. So it took a few years for that formal adaptation of a governance model occurred, because to be honest, there was some challenges working as a staff person, working from a board that was a working board, transitioning to an oversight board when you've got operations. So it just helps clarify. And we were very fortunate because everybody was in it for the right reasons. Everybody wanted to see the association succeed and be sustainable. So all of those little potential glitches or frustrations or challenges were met very well with talking, collaborating, consultation, and moving to the next step. So reflecting on those challenges, it would have been helpful for us to have had a plan to say we're going from a volunteer network to a working board to a staffed operations. I think thinking about those challenges or foreseeing some of the issues might have been very helpful, even just policy development and things like that. We're still developing policies, and we've been in operations for 4 years. So not that all of those things have to be started at the very beginning, but being aware of them and even bringing in some governance coaching right at the very beginning, I think would be very helpful in reflecting backwards. So a lesson that we continue to learn from is the importance of establishing the value proposition. So why would nurses want to join a professional association? What's in it for them? We get that a lot when we're talking to nurses. What's in it for me? Why would I want to join a voluntary association? It's not mandatory like colleges and unions. So it really is important for the association to have that value proposition well established. It's like the elevator speech that we talk about, so that anytime we have an interaction with a member, that we talk about the value so that it's an informed choice for them primarily, in that they're not just looking at the bottom line, okay, this amount of money I have to give to you, especially in this day and age where there's so many competing priorities for our members' money. It's important that they understand the value that they're getting. One of the things we found was the discounted group rate from CNPS was very important, because we had a bundled membership with our own association value, as well as CNA and CNPS. So it was bundled so that when a member purchased our association, paid the fee, they were getting those 3 memberships in one, which is really important that members are aware of that, because the individual beneficiary rate of CNPS on its own looks cheaper than the association membership, but it's not apples to apples. They're getting 3 memberships with us versus just 1 CNPS liability protection on the other hand. So we also found that it's really important that there's a multi-strategy communication plan or for everything that we do, because when you have potentially 10,000 nurses, there could be 10,000 different ideas of what's going to be the hook for them, what is going to engage them, what is going to make them want to be a member of ours. So we're constantly reflecting, meeting with our members, using their feedback to figure out what it is that they're valuing and benefiting from membership. We all know that the nursing profession has a variety of roles and settings, so we have to consider that in all that we do. As well, we're based in a large urban center in Winnipeg, but we're the province of Manitoba. We speak on behalf of the voice of the province of Manitoba. So making sure that our rural and northern nurses are feeling connected, that they see themselves being represented well by the association. A key lesson related to membership fees that I was just talking about is that you strongly encourage considering establishing an association fee right from the start to support your operations. We were fortunate again to have the loan from the college and some startup grants. And that first year, there was a decision not to charge an association fee, but to just have the CNA fee and the CNPS fee be that association fee. So when we did implement a fee the next year, nurses were like, what's going on here? Like, you're increasing your rates already. You know, memory is sometimes short, even though we tried to communicate it right from the beginning that there was no separate fee in that first year for us. It was forgotten. So it's really important. And I think that would have also provided additional funding outside the loan for us to actually get to be financially sustainable a little bit sooner. A lesson from a human resource perspective was that working from a startup is not necessarily for everyone. A startup organization is sometimes not the right environment for every employee, but for anyone who likes change, who's really flexible, enjoys a good challenge, a startup with a professional association can be a wonderful fit. And although there are many lessons that we continue to learn, the last one I wish to highlight is probably one of the most important to keep in mind throughout the journey that you're about to embark on, is that it is such an exciting, evolving, and very rewarding process. I truly believe that when I look back at my career, this has been one of the most exciting jobs I've ever been in. And I'm actually retiring in the fall, and it feels like it's been like the pinnacle of my career. And I've been so grateful that I've been able to represent the profession of nursing in this role. It requires a lot of innovation and creative thinking, because with a voluntary organization, your budget is small, your staff is probably going to be small as well. And you've just got to think outside the box constantly as to how you can engage. Strong leadership and effective management skills are really important, because you're now responsible for the whole organization. And again, often don't have a lot of staff to be able to delegate a lot of those functions to. So it's a master of many in some ways. And we recognize from the beginning that everything we work on is a learning process. So like nursing, where we're always evaluating, we were constantly evaluating processes that we put in place to make sure that we're keeping up with what our members are wanting and keeping up with technology and things like that. And a wonderful example is that when we established ourselves, we recognized the importance of being able to connect across the province. So initiating and implementing Zoom was one of the first things that we got going, so that when we had to pivot to become virtual because of COVID, it took us an hour. We literally left the office, closed up, and we're back functioning, everybody at home, so easily. So it really speaks to constantly thinking of 5 years down the road, where do we need to be, and building in those processes. Okay. So I'm going to end there, because I don't want to take up the whole time talking about that, but it was a pleasure talking about our journey.
Thank you so much, Mary. Finally, Sue, please take a few minutes to tell us your organization's experience in separating the pillars of nursing in your province, and what you feel is of key significance that we need to keep in mind in Saskatchewan.
Well, first and foremost, thank you very, very much for this opportunity. It's an absolute joy to be here with you, and a big hello from Atlantic Canada. So I went from being the CEO of the College of Registered Nurses of Nova Scotia, that was 110 years old, to now being the CEO of the Nova Scotia College of Nursing that just celebrated its first birthday. So that was a pretty cool journey. Our journey is a little different from what Mary and Katherine have described, but you'll find a common theme, and there are more similarities than differences. And if I had to sum it up, it's really about the fact that we all have unique accountabilities, and it's about what our focus is. And in Nova Scotia, we had similarly in the mid-20-teens, so we all were going through, I guess, teenage years, and our board member, one of our board members of the College of Licensed Practical Nurses in 2015 said, would the public be better served by having one regulatory college for all nursing designations in Nova Scotia? Very long story short, similar to the journeys outlined previously, there were feasibility studies done. It was also a very governance-led journey that we were on. And basically, we came up with yes, and it was about focus. At the College of Registered Nurses, we hadn't had an association in Nova Scotia for many years. However, we were still members of CNA at that time. So as we began our journey to create one nursing regulatory college for every designation of nurse, we also began a journey, collegial and collaborative, to work with CNA about our withdrawal and the creation of CNA Nova Scotia. And if I had to sum up basically common themes, and especially for the journey that Saskatchewan's going to be going on, it's all about communicate, collaborate over and over and over again. And I'm really, really pleased to tell you that yes, it's a serious journey, but by engaging, informing, discussing, dialoguing, at the end of the day, we had a unique opportunity to create a new act in Nova Scotia. And as a result of a new nursing act, I think that it also laid the groundwork for really amazing innovation, nimbleness, collaboration that actually saw many benefits in the era of COVID and some of the unique situations we faced. So basically back to when we began this journey in Common Things and thinking about your journey in Saskatchewan, I think the biggest thing in the communicating is there can be a lot of confusion, and never, never, never assume that everybody knows what you're up to. You can never communicate enough. And we certainly did a lot of pre and post follow-ups in communications and gathering information, gathering feedback, not just from registrants. And again, you'll find that distinction between, as a regulatory college, getting used to saying registrant, and as the association member. But in gathering that feedback, we also included the public and a huge number of stakeholders. But at this same time, in the mid-tweens of 20, our government in Nova Scotia also came out with a policy on self-regulation. And that made it very clear that regulators had to have one sole focus on the public, and that associations had to be separate with their focus on advocacy. And then when you look at the pillars of nursing, they had some clarity around the roles of the union as well. So that certainly helped in our journey, that the government was very open and transparent as well about what the guidelines and the rules were going to be on this journey. I think that the other part of this and on our journey, and particularly for Saskatchewan, is really, as you go through every stage, it really is about informing and increasing awareness. Inform, increase awareness, try to lay out a path, a high-level path to help manage the change and communicate what those changes are. And you may not know what some of those answers are, but the fact that the members, registrants feel involved will be really, really important. And then as you continue, that collaboration will allow in communication for innovation, and also for the fact that it helps you to build those partnerships. So at the end of the day, you're going to have some possible opposition. But as we began that journey and continued on it, we found that as we continued to collaborate, communicate, that the opposition, and there really wasn't very much, interestingly enough, it was mostly from Doctors Nova Scotia. So that won't surprise any of nurses to hear that that's where some of the opposition came from. And we found that over time, though, it really, with time, we actually built more support, and particularly from the few that had some differences of opinion, shall we say. So at the end of the day, I'm really proud of the journey that we came on to establish this college, to work with CNA, and how we built out the association there. And we tried to continue to do this collaboratively as well, and provide what support that we can, and particularly in the communicating support because of our reach to all designations of nurses in Nova Scotia. So thank you for this opportunity. And in addition to what we're doing here today, please feel free to reach out anytime. I'm happy to discuss it as well. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Sue. Sue, from your perspective, what needs to occur to move the profession forward in the most impactful way?
At the end of the day, Warren, I think it boils down to trust and collaboration. we are in a different age today. We all have unique accountabilities. And at the end of the day, though, we're all aligned in that we want the very best for the public we serve and for other, like for the associations, for the members that they serve. We want the very best for who we serve. And so at the end of the day, we've got to move past some maybe older, maybe there's some confusion, lack of clarity about baggage that we bring forward. And at the end of the day, we've got to move past this. This is a day and age when all of our stakeholders are much more aware and knowledgeable about who we are and what we do. And they don't have the patience for us to not take advantage of the opportunities that we have. So we've got to really work quickly to move to what we can to support and collaborate so that we can, again, focus on what it is we're all about. So in the case of the regulator, the focus is on the public, the association, the focus on the membership. And so as a result of that, there are a number of activities that you can do, but you have to be authentic as well. And at the end of the day, you need to have everybody around the table, even your critics.
Awesome. There are some wise words for sure. Mary, what are the greatest opportunities for registered nursing in terms of association work?
Well, Warren, I think that nurses at all stages of their career are incredibly important to an association and the profession. Students and new grads in particular are the future of nursing and can offer a wonderful new perspective, offer us new strategies and creative ideas on how to advance the profession. And in light of the current landscape that nurses are working, the extreme change fatigue, working more with less resources, and many feeling disillusioned with nursing right now, we really need to have members understand how the professional provincial associations can help support and identify coping strategies together with that work. It's really, really important, as everyone's mentioning, the importance of collaboration and communication. And being part of a professional provincial association offers an environment of support to discuss those issues, as I said, and there's both professional and personal benefits to members. Professionally, it's an outward sign of support for your profession. It's a place to access professional development opportunities, develop key professional skills such as leadership and organizational understanding. And without a provincial association, who is going to advocate for the nursing profession at those decision-making tables where we need to be? As the largest segment of the healthcare workforce, it's really important that the nurse's voice is at that table and meeting with the Minister of Health and things like that. So not only is the national organization and membership in that very important, there's so much importance in the work that can happen at the provincial tables. And and personally, the opportunities for nurses in association membership is that there's great networking opportunities. As mentioned earlier, there's so many roles and settings of the nursing profession. And unless you know someone or had a family member in another area, you may not be aware of it. Whereas the sessions that provincial professional associations put on increases people's knowledge about the breadth and the scope of nursing. And it really is supporting the profession and advancing the profession. There's so much benefit there. And as a voluntary association, we also have the benefit of being able to provide our members with personal shopping and online discounts and with shopping and services and things like that. So it's very easy for our members to recoup their fees. So there's kind of that personal and professional opportunities there. There's wonderful opportunities to work collaboratively with stakeholders and to advocate not only for the profession, but also for the population that we serve. And in speaking about collaboration a little bit further, one of the things that we found was really important was to establish partnerships and relationships with the specialty groups. Because as a new entity, we're like the new kid on the block, whereas many of our specialty groups have been around for many, many years. And our mandates are not that different. Well, they're not different really at all. They're just at a different level. We're broader, we're a higher level focus of the discipline of nursing, and specialty groups look at a specialty area. But because of that, there's opportunities to collaborate on things so that we're not reinventing the wheel or duplicating services. And we found that very beneficial in Manitoba in the work that we've been doing with our specialty groups, because many of them, well, as you know, they're all voluntary. We at least have some paid staff. Many of them are doing so much of that work at the side of their desk, so that if we can help them with the administrative functions that many of them are challenged with, it can be so helpful. An example of that is all of the groups had to figure out how they were going to do their AGMs. So we reached out and worked with them to be able to facilitate their AGMs virtually by, again, using what we learned and our scripts and our registration packages and all that. And it was very easy for them to just take those, revise them, and run with it. So it's been a wonderful means in that way. So, and as more and more provinces move towards single mandate, I also hope, I see a great opportunity that other provincial associations can band together and communicate collaboratively on ways that we can work together. Because again, when we're small shops, we've got small budgets, and many of the work that we're doing, the professional development opportunities, the advocacy work with decision stakeholders, there's ways that we can help carve out those things. And one example is with a shared learning management system for professional development. So there's so many opportunities to enhance our efforts across the country, reduce duplication, and ultimately benefit our members so that we can keep those fees down. So that's what I think.
Excellent. Lots of opportunities in there.
Mm-hmm.
Katherine, what are the greatest opportunities for registered nursing in terms of governance and regulation?
Thank you. This is a very, very important question. And as you've asked many already, I think we're really all focused on what is the best for the people that we serve. And I know both Sue and Mary have said that. And I think that's really the focus that we need to bring to all the work, whether we're working within a regulatory framework, whether we're determining our governance structures, that still has to be the driving mandate. And as a regulator, of course, that focus is always on the public interest. What is best for the province that we serve? Having said that, then I think there's two very important things that we keep an eye on as a regulatory body that impact the profession as well. And one of them is, in fact, that governance structure that you just mentioned, Warren. One of the things that's happening within Manitoba is that our college is moving toward a selected governance model, so that all of our RN council members will be selected based on competencies and skills that are required at the council level. We already, of course, have public members, some of whom are appointed by the government and some are appointed by the college. And again, we have that opportunity to really look at what are the skill sets we need to make very good decisions regarding the regulation of registered nurses in the interest of the public. And that move forward towards a selected versus an elected model is actually, again, in keeping with our mandate to always be working in the public interest. And in many ways is moving us from a model that we call self-regulation to a model that is actually public regulation. And that's fitting for the work that we do, and it does enhance the public's credibility in our ability to regulate. Having said that, I believe very strongly that we are best at regulation when we acknowledge that we are working together with RNs. So just as all RNs are, of course, invested in what is best for their patients, their clients, their communities, in fact, their province, we work best when we work together with RNs to regulate. I think the other area, though, that we need to look at in regulation is how we regulate together with other professions. You've already heard from Sue and you've heard from Mary about different models in which regulatory bodies are working and associations are working in a more broad mandate. within that mandate, we have to look at professions outside of nursing as well. And in today's delivery of healthcare, we know that healthcare is actually delivered by interprofessional teams. So how do we work together as regulators to actually ensure that we are regulating within that team environment and ensuring that the standards, the expectations, the supports, the practice directions, all of that is really helping our registrants and registrants in other professions to deliver the very best care that they can, so that again, that the province can really determine how and that we are in fact working in the best interests of the province. I think one of the things that's so important, and you've heard it from Sue and you've heard it from Mary, that word collaboration. And collaboration does not mean collusion. Collaboration means that we know each other's roles and we know our roles, and we work together in clarity with that role clarity, so that as the pillars are very strong individually, they actually strengthen the profession as a whole. And I think that concept of collaboration is so important. And if there's anything that I can leave as part of our experience at the college, it is to continue to work collaboratively. Certainly the college and the association work, as I said earlier, with different mandates, but it's very important that we understand each other's mandates, so that if there's something that comes to the college that is better addressed through the association, that we attend that issue, that we ensure that that issue is actually brought to the association's attention. And the association does the same for us, so that we're not mixing our messages, we're not creating confusion, but we are in fact being very clear as we collaborate together. And I think, again, that's a message that can't be said too many times. As you communicate, as you engage, as you reach out, and as you speak to the individuals within the profession that you regulate, and you speak to the communities and the province, the citizens that depend on you for regulation, it's so important that we still maintain that trust, the respect, and the clarity, so that we are in fact delivering messages that are complementary, messages that give the public a reason to trust us, and give registered nurses a reason to be proud of their profession. And I think these are, in fact, the real challenges before us. There are always going to be naysayers. There's always going to be challenges. And that really, how we rise to those challenges says a lot about how we, in fact, govern ourselves every day. And I think that is, again, a very important message in all of this, is that our transparency and the way that we respect each other is always on display. And that is a very important part of how we, I think, have managed this transition very successfully in Manitoba, and certainly have seen that succession and success in Nova Scotia as well. And I think it's available and very achievable for Saskatchewan.
Awesome. Thank you, Katherine. Thank you. Thanks to all the panelists for all your insights and sharing your experiences. We will now look to our attendees for any questions for our panelists. Our first question, there's a couple of questions that came in. And our first question is, how does membership with CNA work with Nova Scotia and Manitoba associations? Love the idea of having other nursing regulators work together. Are we having those conversations in Saskatchewan? So we'll start first with how does the membership with CNA work with Nova Scotia and Manitoba? And we'll ask Sue to start and then Mary to follow.
Thanks, Warren. Basically, with the CNA Nova Scotia, it is a voluntary membership, and that was part of the transition from it being part of the regulator, where I think there was a view that it was not voluntary, and moving to the Nova Scotia model, I think the biggest difference is that it is voluntary. And so in complete transparency, my understanding, and I certainly am not speaking on behalf of the association, is just continuing to build the membership with CNA Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Sue. Mary?
So as I mentioned, we're a bundled membership. So when people voluntarily choose the association, they are also getting our national professional association. And we really value that connection with the national voice. And their fee is $63. And we, as a jurisdictional member, we have the advantage that we get a half-year rate. So past July, members, when they become members during that time period, they're getting a reduced rate, because CNA does have a reduced rate half year for jurisdictional members. So we definitely value that connection. We work collaboratively. We're building stronger relationships with our national organization. So again, as I mentioned, we don't want to be duplicating efforts. That, you know, if the federal, the work they're doing at the federal can benefit us at the provincial level, let's do that together, because we are the hands and the feet in the province to do that advocacy work. We're the ones that are able to establish the meetings with the provincial stakeholders and things like that. So it's been working well. And again, like everything, there's always room to enhance and improve.
Awesome, thank you. Then I love the idea of other nursing regulators working together. Are we having those conversations in Saskatchewan? We are always working with other regulators, trying to establish the best regulators in Saskatchewan, or best regulatory excellence in Saskatchewan. So those are conversations that happen. How closely we work together is we're always working together. Everybody's got different perceptions. But we are striving to work together for the health of patients, families, communities. And so there's another question here. Discounts for shopping were mentioned as a perk of association membership, which allows for individuals to gain back what they have spent on their membership fees. Can you provide more information about what this looks like for members? Mary?
Absolutely. And for those of you are aware, on Thursday, I will actually be presenting a session that will go into a little bit more detail on all that. So I encourage you to join that session on Thursday. But we work a lot with Percopolis, which is a web-based, I think it's an international organization, so it has discounts across the world. And as well, our communication staff are always looking for vendors and sources within the province to provide discounts. So we've, and you could go to our website. If you look under benefits, it's called Perks for Nurses program, and you'd be able to see all of the different groups that are now partnered with us. For example, Johnson Insurance in the country has many professional associations, not just nursing associations, connected with them. And they provide a really wonderfully discounted travel and trip cancellation. Yeah, we get members telling us testimonies about how they saved over $300 on their travel insurance, because especially as nurses get older and are retiring and are wanting to do a lot more travel, it's been a significant benefit. And again, they value the professional advantages, but if that's the hook that's going to allow them to see the value of a voluntary organization, it's working well.
Thank you, Mary. Another question here is Nova Scotia still working on the creation of an association? And then it goes on to say, I noticed that individuals can get their own membership with CNA versus through an association membership. Sue, I'll let you speak to that first, and then I can add in because I'm also on CNA.
Sure thing, Warren. Basically, we do realize there might be some confusion out there from the initial work to create even a possible Atlantic association. and looking for it to be inclusive of all designations. And then that's when CNA came along and also offered this opportunity for CNA Nova Scotia. But the whole key in all of this was for it to be voluntary. And I'll look to you, Warren, because you might have even a more of an update than I do if you want to continue.
Yeah, part of this would go through back to a June 2018 decision for CNA to open up membership to all categories of regulated nurses. And at that time, CNA needed to open up a mechanism so that other categories could join. So yeah, there is a couple avenues, and CNA is still working on some governance structure changes that are yet to come and should be at the AGM next year. There should be some bylaws coming forward to discuss with CNA on how the governance structure of CNA is, but that is still work in progress. Hopefully that answers the question. There's another question here, question 4. What were the pros cons for each of the organizations to have CNPS protection remaining with regulatory body versus association? And I'm going to call on Katherine to answer this one first, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you, Warren. The College of Registered Nurses determined early on that although the registration or requirement in regulation for liability protection was necessary for registration, we ourselves as a college did not feel that we were the members or the jurisdictional members that should carry that membership. Again, it came back to the Regulated Health Professions Act that stipulated that we could not gather membership fees on behalf of another organization. So again, it offered an opportunity for the association to become that jurisdictional member, but we still required and felt that CNPS liability protection offered the best protection from a public protection perspective. As we all know, liability protection is there for the public. And so that was part of the negotiation, was to ensure that the CNPS would accept the jurisdictional membership transfer from the college to the association.
Thank you, Katherine. Mary or Sue, would you like to add in?
Sorry, go ahead, Mary.
I was just going to say, there is tremendous advantage, as I mentioned, the value, and we have the advantage of being the jurisdictional member for CNPS, which gives us the opportunity to provide a discounted rate on to our members. So a $48 group rate versus the individual beneficiary rate of $120. So nurses in Manitoba, it is voluntary, so that they have two choices where they can get their liability protection, and that's very clear. You know, the college does not favor one or the other. It's very clear that members as registrants have to have liability protection, and there's two places to get it. So that's the one piece we need to do, is share and talk to members so that they understand that we are able to provide a discounted rate because we are the jurisdictional member.
And I could just build on that, Warren, from what Mary and Katherine have said, is that in Nova Scotia, where there hadn't been an association for a number of years, and there was still such a transition, with the opportunity to create a brand new nursing act for all designations of nurses, we were able to change the language to have much more flexibility. And basically, although when somebody relicenses or registers with Nova Scotia, they actually leave our website and connect with CNPS. So we're not technically, Nova Scotia itself is not collecting to recognize what Katherine had raised about a regulator technically not collecting, but we certainly allow that connection to show evidence of liability, with the fact that for the future, as the association perhaps looks into this, we've had open conversations about this with CNPS, with CNA, with the association, that at some future date, there may be a move to the association collecting, but at least for right now, we were able to create almost a hybrid solution that still satisfied the fact that nurses had their liability covered.
Thank you very much, Sue, for building on that one. It sounds like it's a little bit more nuanced, and every province is going to have a little bit finer details in this conversation with CNPS. Yeah. Okay. Next question is, sorry. Can you provide a dollar amount for the cost of membership in the two provinces? And I believe that would be referring to membership would be the association lingo. Do you know the cost of membership, Sue, in Nova Scotia?
Initially, for that first transition, my understanding is they didn't collect anything. Then as part of CNA membership, CNA Nova Scotia was established. And that's, again, I'm not speaking for the association, but my understanding is they're still working through what a future fee schedule would be.
Perfect. Thank you. And Mary, could you provide that dollar figure in Manitoba?
Total amount is $199, and that includes tax. So the association fee would be $78.80. $78.80. The CNA one is about 63 something in cents, and then $48 for CNPS. So that's how it's broken down.
So about $200 for key membership in 3 key organizations.
That's right, yes.
And just as a side note, the CNA membership also carries ICN membership.
Well, they're the linkage, because apparently, truth be told, we don't individually have memberships with ICN. Like CNA is the member of ICN, but we are linked to ICN through CNA. So just the nuance, as you say, the nuance is there. So that it's a country-based organization, ICN.
Yeah. With our linkages to the world.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for adding into that. There's always, it seems to be another little nuance into some things with nursing. How has Nova Scotia and Manitoba structured and supported their continuing education or maintenance of competency requirements of RNs? And I'll ask Sue and Catherine. Well, all of us could chime in on this one.
Sure, I can start out here on the East Coast. We can move across. We've taken this opportunity with the new Nursing Act to really re-examine critically what that continuing competency model would be, because we're really pushing ourselves to think outside the box. So we have a major initiative in which we basically maintained the basic components of pretty much what I think most people would have for continuing competency, a learning plan, how you're going to achieve those objectives tied to your standards. But we're really going to push ourselves, so stay tuned, because we're looking at all designations of nurses and what that continuing competency role would be. And we're quite a ways through the project and looking at what's going on around the world on this key topic. So stay tuned.
Thank you, Sue. And Catherine, did you want to add in on that, or Mary?
Certainly.
And then we'll wrap it up after this.
So in Manitoba, we do follow a very similar model, as Sue said. It's a self-reflection on your practice related to the practice standards and identification of some learning, key learning objectives, development of a learning plan, and then every year there is a randomly selected group of registered nurses that go through a process that we call a continuing practice competency assessment. So we review and look at those learning plans that are submitted by that randomly selected group. And some of those are then selected for a practice audit or an interview that really, again, goes into a bit deeper reflection on your practice. You gather feedback from your colleagues to, again, provide you with some more insights into your practice. I think this is one of those areas, though, where the association and the college do have some ability to do some complementary work. Mary's talked a bit about all of the professional development pieces that are available through the association, so I won't speak to that. But it could be very important to say that both the college and the association play a role in ensuring that nurses are engaged in ongoing learning, again, from a different perspective and with slightly different accountabilities.
I agree, Catherine. And one of the ways that we have been able to promote our professional development focus is we say to nurses, like, we can be like your one-stop shop. We have an events calendar and we've got offerings weekly now throughout, as well as advertising and promoting CNA. I mean, there's tremendous professional development opportunities with CNA that, again, we don't want to duplicate, but how do we enhance that? And that nurses, and we always talk about how we can assist we identify learning objectives so that when nurses are wanting to build their learning plan, that they can use, you know, some of the objectives that are already listed to advertise a session, trying to make it an easier process for members as well. And that one that they look forward to. Nursing is a lifelong profession, lifelong learning profession. Rather, we don't want to see it as a burden that we have to do these plans. It's actually very exciting. And we're always using subject matter expertise presenters from the province as much as possible, because that's also been a way to really showcase and highlight the tremendous expertise we have in our profession.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we could get into some very long discussions, but wanting to respect everybody's time, we're just gonna close it down. Thank you to Catherine, Sue, and Mary for joining us today for this incredible discussion and reflection on their learned experiences. I am compelled to quote Florence Nightingale, who said, "Nursing is a progressive art, such that to stand still is to go backwards." I'm not sure about you, but today's discussion has certainly brought me a great deal of confidence on the future of registered nursing in the province of Saskatchewan and beyond. This wraps up our opening panel, Lessons Learned in Moving from Dual to Single Mandate Organizations. I hope that you can join us live tomorrow at 12 p.m. as Tracy Zambori, President of the Saskatchewan Union of Nurses, will launch our three-part session on strengthening the three pillars of nursing. She will discuss the role of the union and how the union acts on behalf of nurses. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thursday.